Howdy gamers, let's talk about the runes for Lulu support. Lulu hasn't been a good support for a while, but she still is pickable, especially in lower MMR. She has a lot of power in that she's easy to play. Her early levels, like levels 1 to 4, are just like unfairly dominant in a lot of matchups. So she has that going for her. And if your champion's good, levels 1 to 4, you're probably winning most solo queue games. Is like you solo kill level 2, this shit's over, you know? But anyways, the major keystones for Lulu is going to be Airy and Guardian. It's the only ones I'm going to go over. So yeah, starting with Airy. Summon Airy gives you more damage on your auto attacks and your abilities, and then gives you more shielding on your shield, and then Lulu's ult as well. This keystone basically functions like Lulu's entire kit does, where Lulu's abilities have an offensive and defensive function. Her shield can be used to shield an ally, but if cast on an enemy, then it deals damage. The W gives attack speed or CCs the enemy. Um, so Summon Airy has like really solid synergy with how Lulu's kit works. And in the early game, it's a lot about how much damage you can deal solo to the enemy, and then later transition into healing, or not healing, shielding and protecting your ally with the shield, the W, and then the ult. And whenever you're doing that, then Airy's going to function as a shielding utility later in the game. So it basically is like the perfect rune for Lulu, as it does all that damage early and then protects later. Perfect. Anyways, second rune is going to be Mana Flow Ban. Hitting an enemy champion with an ability permanently increases your maximum mana by 25 up to 250 mana, and then whenever you get to that, then you restore 1% of your missing mana every 5 seconds. Lulu's pretty mana hungry, especially once you get into the mid game where you're constantly spamming your shield and your W on your AD carry. Then that's when you can really start running into problems, as if the abilities are wasted, or you have to cast them too many times throughout the laning phase or through a team fight, especially an extended team fight, then you're just going to run out of mana. And whenever you run out of mana, you're just not a champion as Lulu. So having the extra mana is pretty necessary, and you're not really missing out on anything by not running Nimbus Cloak or Nullifying Orb. You could take Nullifying Orb in AP matchup spot lane, so if you're playing into champions like Syndra, Vigar, etc., or if you're playing into Karthus jungle or something, it's something to consider. And you would just have to play around not having this extra mana, but for most matchups, you're going to be running this. In the third row, your good options are Transcendence and Absolute Focus, but I think you should go with Absolute Focus. Again, it kind of synergizes pretty well with Lulu's kit, as you want the extra ability power early to deal more damage, and then you also want the ability power later, as if you don't have the extra ability power, then your shields just aren't strong enough, or your Q doesn't deal enough damage. Like, your abilities just cease to function as well if you don't have a lot of ability power, because they block less and deal less. And Lulu's not really a champion that benefits from the 10% CDR at level 10 compared to other enchanters. Champions that really abuse this are champions like Soraka, where once you get to mid game, you're already winning, and then just having something that makes you even stronger is way more beneficial. With Absolute Focus, you're still going to get value mid game, because again, if you just don't have ability power, then your abilities cease to function as well. So pretty solid rune, and while it works, the way it works is that you have to be above 70% health, and most of the time you are going to be above 70% health as Lulu, because you're usually playing backline if you're playing properly. Fourth rune is going to be Scorch. Your next damage ability basically just deals more magic damage, and this is on a 10-second cooldown. So basically every time your Q's up, and that's when you should be looking to poke as well, every time your Q's up, then you're going to be able to just get a little bit more damage. Scorch in combination with Airy makes it so that anytime you trade on the enemy, you're just going to be dealing more damage. And it's so important for Lulu to win the early part of the lane phase, because that's when she's strong. And if she can't do that, then it just feels bad. And yeah, it's not bad to take Gathering Storm in matchups that you're already going to win. But in most matchups, you probably just want Scorch. Just more damage, the more you can play with too, because even if you're playing perfectly, your AD might not be, and then just having the extra damage on the enemy carry makes things easier. So that's the primary rune page. And then for the secondary, I'm going to recommend Domination with Ghost Poro and Ultimate Hunter. Ghost Poro, whenever your wards expire, they leave behind a Ghost Poro, which grants vision for 60 seconds. So this is kind of like a extra duration on a ward. The Ghost Poro functions pretty similar to a ward where you get vision around the area that it's at, but once the enemy steps in that area, then the Ghost Poro disappears. But it can still be pretty useful, as in the bot lane, the most important bush to ward is the one closest to the tower, or the enemy's towers, so you can spot the enemy jungler coming in, an enemy roaming, or even if you're pushing into the enemy or if they're pushing into you. If you have information of kind of where they're positioned in the lane from that ward or the Ghost Poro, then it helps you play around a bit, because you could spot them going into the alcove, especially champions like Thresh, Blitzcrank, where they like to sit in the alcove and then try to get a Hextech flash off, or just try to land a hook from the Fog of War. It keeps it, the extra vision duration just makes things a bit easier, especially in the laning phase. And more importantly, whenever you place a Ghost Poro, then you get permanently increased ability power, and then this eventually gives you 30 ability power just for warding. It's so crazy for supports. And so long that your wards just aren't being insta-cleared or something, you're going to get to this 30 AP at some point in the game. And if you use it well, then you can get to it like pretty consistently in the mid game too. So really strong rune, especially for a support champion that like really needs the ability power. It's nice to be able to get it from a pretty easy free source in runes versus having to purchase it in game. And then Ultimate Hunter, your ultimate gains 5% reduced cooldown and then an additional 4% per Bounty Hunter stack. The Bounty Hunter stacks are basically like for a unique champion kill, so the support's one, the AD's one, the mid lane's one, the jungle's one, etc. So you're probably guaranteed to get like at least 2 Bounty Hunter stacks around at least before 10 minutes in most games. So at the very minimum, Ultimate Hunter is usually around 9% by the time you're level 6. But even if it's at 5%, it's fine. Like, the more you stack it up, the better. But even if it's just sitting on the 5%, Lulu is so gated in her functionality, especially in team fights, based on if her ult is up or not. And her ult's a pretty significant cooldown. So might as well run it. And that's your primary like utility mid to late game. So just having the ults up more is more impactful. And it really denies the enemy like any opportunities to capitalize on the ult being down, and then it also helps you save allies who are playing bad. So in both cases, it's good. If you're winning, it's good. If you're losing, it's good. And then for adaptive runes, it's going to be attack speed, AP, and armor. The attack speed might seem kind of odd, but Lulu's auto attacks are really strong early game. The attack speed will help you not only like attack the enemy, but get control over the minion wave, because on the first couple waves, if you just have more attack speed, you can just choose if you're going to get level 2 or not against the enemy, especially if you start Q, because your Q can hit all 6 minions level 1, and then you can just be blasting the other minions and almost guarantee that you're going to hit, you and your AD are going to hit level 2 first. And then once you start trading on the enemy, let's say an EQ, you slow them, and then you can just get more auto attacks off on them. Really strong. It just gives you more power too. More power in yourself early versus more power in your AD. And for Lulu, you're offering your AD more if you're stronger early anyways. So missing out on the CDR or the ability power isn't even a big deal on Lulu. And then the next room being ability power, again, just a little bit of AP from this, and then the scaling AP with Ghost Poro. You get a little bit of scaling from this too, but just having the small amounts early just helps you deal more damage and makes your abilities more impactful. And then the +6 armor is pretty basic in the bot lane, as you're going to be taking physical damage from minions, both champions in the bot lane and potentially a tower and dragon, but mostly it helps offset a lot of damage from the enemy AD and the enemy minions, as you're primarily going to want to be trading onto the enemy AD when you can, so negating their damage is pretty good. So this is the default runes I recommend on Lulu. They're mostly focusing on like getting a good amount of power for yourself early, and then winning early. And then if you win early, it's a lot easier to help your allies, as if you have an item advantage, then Lulu really functions a lot better as a support. If you don't, it really sucks. So you better put all your eggs in the winning early basket. So that's that. These are the default runes. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I answer literally all of them. Now let's talk about the variations. The most common second rune page would be like Biscuits and Cosmic Insight. Other supports make better use of this as they primarily trade through their abilities. Lulu primarily trades with like her Q and then her auto attacks. Most supports auto attacks aren't as strong as Lulu's. Lulu's range is pretty good, and she has like extra damage on hit. So having the extra mana and HP from the biscuits isn't really necessary, as you're already winning early anyways. And then the 5 CDR also isn't as good on Lulu as her cooldowns are longer anyway, so this 5 CDR isn't making or breaking anything. And then it doesn't like outweigh the domination tree in my opinion. And then resolve secondary is even worse. Bone plating and revitalize. With Lulu, you only have a shield and then your ult. I don't even know if her ult counts as a heal like Zillion ult, but with Revitalize, your heals and shields are 5% stronger and then 10% on targets below 40% health. So if you don't have a heal and a shield, that can be cast multiple times, like Taric or Janna or something. It's really hard to get value out of Revitalize, and Lulu has a lot of damage primarily, a lot of damage, and then she has like a shield. Her ult's like just an HP buff and then like a CC, and her W is like a CC and an attack speed buff. So you don't have a lot of things that the heal and shield buff is gonna buff. It's just gonna be primarily for Airy and then the E shield, and it's not really that impactful compared to other supports. That and the AP would just do it better anyways. And then bone plating, blocking a little bit of damage for free. This is like a band-aid rune. It's like you don't know how to lane properly, so you block a little bit of damage when you're too far forward and then say that it's worth. I really don't like Revitalize. And then precision secondary, nothing here is that good. You could run this and this, but super low value. You'd have to get kills and assists to get the mana, and then having scaling attack speed is pretty useless as you stop auto attacking like come mid game. So having the attack speed here makes sense, but having it where it's scaling doesn't make any sense. And then something like cut down, it's not about how much damage you deal mid game, so that doesn't matter. And then tenacity, it's like why even? It's not Lulu's job to eat abilities, especially CC abilities. So that's the variation with the secondary runes. Onto the next keystone with Guardian. Guardian is useful whenever you're playing into melee matchups, but you shouldn't even play Lulu into those matchups. But if you are, Guardian helps more as you get one big ass shield that's on a longer cooldown, and then it's actually going to save your ally from like getting engaged on, because let's say Nautilus ults into Hook and then you shield ult your ally, they're going to get a bigger shield, they're going to get more movement speed to run away, and that's that. They're like actually going to get out, versus the summon Airy shield is like for trades because it's smaller and then it's on a lower cooldown. So Guardian is like to negate all ins, Airy is for trades. And then second rune in the resolve path is going to be Font of Life. Impairing the movement of an enemy champion marks them for 4 seconds. Allied champions who attacked marked enemies heal for 5 plus 1% of your max health for 2 seconds. So anytime you hit your Q, anytime you use your W, or even land the ult onto enemies, then you're going to mark them, and then this helps your ally mainly your ADC just be at a little bit healthier HP value in the laning phase, and it also helps whenever they're turning onto the enemy that's engaging on them, because if you're running something like Guardian, you're probably building more defensive support items like Athene's, and then maybe, yeah, Athene's, maybe Ardent, and if you have Font of Life, it's going to proc both of those, and it's pretty nice because it's kind of hard to proc Athene's and Ardent on your ally once you use your initial shield, so it can keep both of those like both of the passives of the items being utilized even when Lulu's abilities are on cooldown. And then for the fourth rune, your best option is conditioning, as if you're running this anyways, you're playing defensive early, and with conditioning, after 10 minutes you gain 9 armor, 9 magic resist, and then increased armor and magic resist. So this basically gives you around 15 or 14 like armor and magic resist come mid game. And then where you're playing safe early, you might as well get this, as it just makes you tankier mid game. And even though it's not like your job to eat a lot of damage, there's a lot of AoE damage, especially with how mid laners are stronger now. So champions like Ezreal, Syndra, etc., they could actually damage the backline without like much risk. And being tankier then can be a lot more impactful, as surviving a fight means that you can get more rotations of your abilities off, which makes you have more impact as support. With bone plating, it definitely makes the laning phase easier, as you just block more damage for free, and you effectively just have more HP because of that. Bone plating is on a pretty long cooldown, and it's only useful if you get hit by something. So whenever you're going for like small trades, it's pretty useless, as you're just going to be proccing it, and then it's not going to be that effective. But let's say if you eat a hook, that's when it's really effective, as it negates the hook entirely. But then it's like, it's not Lulu's job to eat a hook, and if you're doing so, you're just misplaying, regardless if you're running Guardian or not. So conditioning's just better. And then fourth row, I mean, since you're here, you might as well run Revitalize, but Overgrowth wouldn't be bad. Overgrowth basically gives you like a Ruby Crystal for free come mid game. And then Revitalize, your heals and shields are stronger. That's true. That's true. I only think Revitalize because you'd probably have Athenes with this build. With this Keystone, I should say. I'm kind of torn though. Whatever, Revitalize. And then for secondary runes, if you're running this page, you're playing to scale, so Biscuits and Cosmic Insight is good. Mana Flow and Gathering Storm would also be alright. But with Biscuits and Cosmic Insight, then you're guaranteed to get the extra mana from Biscuits, because whenever you consume or sell a Biscuit, you get a permanent increase of 50 mana, and then you can do that 4 times. So you're guaranteed the mana with the Biscuits, and then with Cosmic Insight, it makes it so that your summoner spells and your summoner spell, your item, and your ability CDR is 5% lower. Having the summoner spells up more often can be pretty impactful, as you can maybe be running something like Heal or Exhaust whenever you're running this this Keystone. And then if you're running this, you might as well run CDR and then just Adaptive Force Armor. So that'd be the Guardian page. It's not that great for Lulu. It's definitely not better than the Summon Airy page. But if you're playing into melee matchups and playing defensive for some ungodly reason in solo queue, this is your best bet. So that's that. Hope this video helped. If it did help, leaving a like helps me. And if you're interested in some support gameplay, twitch.tv/StarryNelson. I'll be live when Season 10 starts. I'm not playing Lulu, man. Don't ask me. Alrighty, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.